The diner went silent when the bruised woman silently pleaded with a deaf child. Her hands trembled as she signed "Help me" to the only person who might understand without giving her away. Then his father, the city's most feared man, walked in and saw everything. Maya's fingers clutched the coffee pot so tightly her knuckles turned white. Another double shift at Nico's diner meant another day hiding the fresh bruises beneath her uniform sleeve. The breakfast rush had thinned out, leaving only scattered customers hunched over lukewarm coffee and half-eaten toast. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Maya had perfected invisibility over the past year. Head down, voice soft, movements efficient. Being forgettable was her only defense against Ryan's explosive temper. Her boyfriend had promised to change after the first time his anger left marks, but promises shattered like everything else in their apartment when he'd been drinking. "Order up for table 6. Gino called from the kitchen, sliding a plate of pancakes beneath the heat lamp. Maya nodded, carefully adjusting her collar to hide the finger-shaped bruises along her collarbone. Last night had been bad. Ryan had found text messages from her sister urging her to leave him. The phone was now in pieces, and Maya's ribs ached with every breath. The bell above the door chimed, and the atmosphere in the diner shifted instantly. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Utensils froze halfway to mouths. Even Gino, who never stopped talking, fell silent. "Don't look." Sheila, another waitress, hissed as she rushed past. "Rossi's men. Serve them quick and get away." The Rossi family owned half the city legitimate businesses on paper, but everyone knew the truth. Their syndicate controlled everything from construction to city politics, leaving a trail of broken lives in their wake. Maya had heard whispers about people who crossed them disappearing without a trace. She kept her eyes down, focusing on wiping down the counter, but curiosity pulled her gaze toward the newcomers. 3 men in expensive suits occupied the corner booth, their presence overwhelming the small diner. 2 were clearly bodyguards, scanning the room with practiced efficiency. The third caught Maya's attention. He was younger, maybe 8 or 9, with solemn dark eyes and perfectly combed hair. Unlike the men flanking him, he wore casual clothes, designer jeans, and a blue button-up that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. The boy stared at the tabletop, tracing patterns with his finger, completely withdrawn. No one approached their table. What are they waiting for? Maya whispered to Sheila. "Antonio Rossi himself," Sheila replied, voice barely audible. "That's his son, Leo. They say the boy hasn't spoken since his mother was killed in a rival family's hit last year. Lost his hearing in the explosion, too." Maya's heart constricted. She watched the boy continue tracing the same pattern over and over, his shoulders hunched forward in a posture she recognized all too well, the instinctive curl of someone trying to disappear. Before she could stop herself, Maya grabbed a children's menu and a glass of water. Sheila grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" Panic edged her voice. "Let Frank handle that table." Maya gently pulled away. "He's just a kid, Sheila." Her feet carried her across the diner as if pulled by an invisible thread. The bodyguards stiffened as she approached, their hands shifting subtly toward concealed weapons. Maya kept her movements slow, non-threatening as she placed the menu and water before the boy. "Hi there," she said, not expecting a response. The boy didn't look up, continuing his pattern tracing. One of the guards grunted dismissively. "He can't hear you." "Don't bother." Something about their dismissal sparked a quiet defiance in Maya. Growing up with a deaf cousin had taught her the isolation of being surrounded by people who wouldn't make the effort to communicate. Without thinking, she crouched down to the boy's eye level and lifted her hands. "Hello," she signed. "My name is Maya." The boy's head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. For several heartbeats, he simply stared at her hands as if they were performing magic. Then, slowly, his own hands rose. "You know signs?" He signed back, movements hesitant, unpracticed. Maya nodded, smiling. "Yes. Would you like something to eat?" The boy's expression remained serious, but something shifted in his eyes, a spark igniting in darkness. "Nobody talks to me anymore. Not since Mom." His hands faltered, and Maya felt her throat tighten. She signed back. "I'm talking to you now. What would you like? Chocolate milk?" He signed, a tentative request as if expecting rejection. "Coming right up." Maya signed, then stood. She felt the bodyguard's suspicious stares, following her as she walked to the kitchen. When she returned with the chocolate milk, Leo was sitting straighter, watching the door with apprehension. "Dad's coming," he signed quickly when she set down the drink. Maya's stomach nodded. Antonio Rossi's reputation preceded him. Former rivals found floating in the harbor, businesses that refused his protection, mysteriously burning down, police investigations that disappeared overnight. "I should go," she signed. Leo's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength. "Please don't. Nobody talks to me like you do." Before Maya could respond, the diner's door swung open. The man who entered didn't just walk, he commanded space. Tall and broad-shouldered with salt and pepper hair and a tailored suit that screamed money and power. His presence filled the room like smoke, suffocating and inescapable. Antonio Rossi's cold gaze swept the diner before landing on their table. His expression darkened when he saw Maya's wrist in his son's grip. "Let her go, Leo," he said, voice deceptively quiet. Leo didn't hear the command, but something in Maya's expression must have communicated the danger. He released her wrist but immediately signed, "She talks to me, with hands." Antonio Rossi's attention shifted fully to Maya, his dark eyes assessing her with calculating precision. She fought the urge to shrink back, to make herself smaller as she did with Ryan. "You know sign language?" he asked, voice carrying a hint of surprise beneath the steel. Maya nodded, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "My cousin is deaf. I learned growing up." Something unreadable flickered across Rossi's face, not softening, exactly, but a momentary fracture in the hard facade. He glanced at his son, who was watching their exchange with unusual alertness. One of the bodyguards leaned in, whispering something urgent in Rossi's ear. Maya caught fragments first time, responded to anyone, specialists couldn't. Antonio's gaze returned to Maya, more intense than before. "What's your name?" "Maya Reyes." "Maya," he repeated, as if testing the sound. "You're coming with us." It wasn't a request. Maya's pulse quickened, panic rising in her throat. I can't. I'm working. I need this job." Antonio turned to the counter where the diner's owner stood frozen in fear. "Nico, how much does she make in a month?" "About $2,200 with tips, Mr. Rossi," Nico replied, voice trembling. Antonio pulled a thick envelope from his jacket and placed it on the counter. "That's 6 months' salary. She's done here." Maya's mind raced. This couldn't be happening. She needed this job, needed the stability, needed to save enough to finally escape Ryan. "Mr. Rossi, please." "Dad." Leo signed frantically, drawing his father's attention. "She's the first person who's talked to me since Mom died. Please don't scare her away." Antonio's expression softened marginally as he looked at his son. When he turned back to Maya, his voice was quieter but no less commanding. "My son hasn't responded to anyone in over a year. Not doctors, not therapists, not family. I've hired specialists from 3 continents, all useless." His gaze sharpened. "Then you walk up and within minutes he's communicating." Maya felt trapped between impossible choices. Refuse and potentially face whatever happened to people who defied Antonio Rossi. Accept and walk into the unknown territory of one of the city's most dangerous men. But then Leo looked up at her with those solemn eyes carrying too much sadness for a child, and she thought of her cousin growing up in a world where no one bothered to learn his language. "I'll come," Maya said quietly. "But I need to go home first. Pack some things." "No need," Antonio dismissed. "Everything will be provided. At least let me tell my boyfriend where I'll be," she insisted, knowing Ryan would explode if she simply disappeared. Antonio's eyes narrowed slightly. "Marco will accompany you. 15 minutes, no more." The ride to her apartment was silent and tense. Marco, the larger of the 2 bodyguards, said nothing as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Maya's hands trembled as she unlocked the door, praying Ryan wouldn't be home. Her luck had run out. Ryan's hulking frame appeared in the hallway, beer in hand despite the early hour. "You're home early," he said, voice deceptively casual. His eyes flicked to Marco standing in the doorway, and wariness crept into his expression. "Who's this?" "My name isn't important," Marco stated flatly. "Miss Reyes is coming with me to work for Mr. Rossi. She needs to pack." Ryan's face darkened. "The hell she is." "Maya isn't going anywhere." Marco stepped inside, closing the distance between them with surprising speed for his size. "This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Rossi wants her skills with his son. I don't care what Rossi wants, Ryan snarled, though Maya noticed the fear flickering beneath his bravado. She's my girlfriend. And that gives you ownership? Marco asked, his gaze dropping to Maya's poorly concealed bruises. His expression hardened further. Pack your things, Miss Reyes. Quickly. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Ryan blocked Maya's path to the bedroom. You're not leaving me? He hissed, gripping her arm exactly where the worst bruises were. She flinched involuntarily. Marco moved so quickly, Ryan had no time to react. One moment he was gripping Maya's arm, the next he was pinned against the wall, Marco's forearm pressing against his throat. Touch her again, Marco said quietly, and you'll lose the hand. Ryan's face paled, genuine terror replacing his anger. Marco released him with a look of disgust and turned to Maya. Get what you need. 5 minutes. Maya didn't waste time arguing. She grabbed a duffel bag and stuffed it with essentials, clothes, toiletries, the small photo of her parents, the emergency cash hidden under a loose floorboard. Her heart pounded as she worked, the reality of what was happening sinking in. She was leaving with Antonio Rossi, a man whispered about in fear throughout the city. Yet somehow, it felt less terrifying than staying with Ryan. When she emerged, Ryan was sitting on the couch, cradling his throat, hatred burning in his eyes. This isn't over, he said, voice raspy. You think you can just walk out? You're nothing without me. Marco stepped between them. Mr. Rossi doesn't appreciate people threatening his employees. Remember that. Outside, Maya drew a shaky breath of relief, still processing the whirlwind of the past hour. Thank you, she said quietly to Marco as they walked to the waiting car. His expression remained impassive. Don't thank me. I didn't do it for you. The Rossi estate was not simply a house but an institution unto itself, a sprawling mansion set, behind imposing iron gates and surrounded by manicured grounds. Security cameras tracked their movement up the long driveway. Men with concealed weapons patrolled the perimeter. Maya clutched her duffel bag tighter as they entered through massive double doors into a foyer larger than her entire apartment. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. This was a different world. Miss Reyes. Maya turned to find Antonio Rossi watching her from the doorway of what appeared to be a study. He'd removed his suit jacket, the rolled sleeves of his crisp white shirt revealing strong forearms. Up close, she could see the silver threading through his dark hair, the lines of experience around his eyes. My housekeeper will show you to your room, he said. Once you're settled, we'll discuss your duties. Mr. Rossi. Maya gathered her courage. I still don't understand what exactly you want from me. Antonio studied her for a moment. My son hasn't spoken or communicated with anyone since his mother was killed 18 months ago. The explosion damaged his hearing, but the specialists say his withdrawal is psychological, not physical. His jaw tightened. I've hired the best therapists money can buy. None of them could reach him. His gaze hardened. Then you walk up in a diner, and within minutes, he's signing, engaging, present again. That's what I want from you, Miss Reyes. I want my son back. Maya swallowed. I'm not a therapist or a teacher. I just know sign language. You have something more valuable than credentials, Antonio replied. You have his trust. Don't squander it. A severe-looking woman appeared, introducing herself as Mrs. Vega, the head of household staff. She led Maya upstairs to a suite that was larger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. The bedroom featured a 4-poster bed draped in silk, adjoined to a private bathroom with heated marble floors, and a walk-in closet already filled with new clothes in her size. How did you know? Maya began. Mr. Rossi is thorough, Mrs. Vega replied simply. Dinner is at 7. Leo usually eats in his room, but perhaps tonight he'll join us if you ask him. Left alone, Maya sank onto the edge of the bed, feeling disoriented by the rapid change in her circumstances. Just hours ago, she'd been serving pancakes and hiding bruises. Now she was in a mansion, surrounded by luxury and danger in equal measure. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Opening the door, she found Leo standing in the hallway, still in the same clothes from the diner, watching her with those serious eyes. You really came, he signed, looking almost surprised. Maya smiled, signing back. I promised, didn't I? The boy hesitated, then signed, "People make promises to me all the time. They don't keep them." The simple statement, delivered with such resignation from a child so young, broke something in Maya's heart. She crouched down to his eye level. "I keep my promises," she signed firmly. "Always." Leo studied her face with an intensity beyond his years, searching for deception. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him, because he nodded once, then asked, "Will you have dinner with me? Not in my room, at the table." Maya's smile widened. "I'd like that very much." For the first time, Leo's solemn expression softened, not quite a smile but a lightening of the shadows in his eyes. He held out his hand, and Maya took it, allowing him to lead her through the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion that had become her new home, and perhaps her new prison. Behind them, unnoticed in the shadows of the hallway, Antonio Rossi watched the exchange, his expression unreadable, save for the faintest flicker of hope in eyes that had seen too much darkness. Dinner at the Rossi mansion moved with precise choreography. Maya watched as uniformed staff circled the enormous table, placing china and crystal with practiced efficiency. Antonio sat at the head, Leo beside him, while Maya occupied the seat on Leo's other side. The vast dining room, with its vaulted ceiling and ornate chandeliers, made her feel impossibly small. "Leo doesn't usually join us for dinner," Antonio observed, his tone carefully neutral as he watched his son meticulously arranging his silverware. "Us?" Maya asked, glancing at the dozen empty chairs. "My associates often dine here to discuss business," Antonio explained. "But not tonight." Maya nodded, wondering what business looked like at Antonio Rossi's table. She imagined hushed conversations about territory disputes, protection rackets, and whatever else constituted the family's criminal enterprises. Leo tugged Maya's sleeve, drawing her attention. "Dad doesn't know how to sign," he signed, his small hands moving with deliberate precision. "He tried learning after Mom died, but he was too busy," Maya translated for Antonio, who watched their exchange with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Tell him," Antonio said after a moment, "that I'm sorry." When Maya signed this to Leo, the boy's hands paused midair, surprise flickering across his face. He stared at his father for a long moment before signing back. "It's okay. You had to take care of important things," Maya translated, her chest tightening at the resignation in Leo's signs. The boy had already accepted that his father's world left little room for him. Antonio's expression hardened. "The family business required attention after your mother's death. Security concerns, territorial challenges. But that's no excuse." When Maya translated, Leo merely nodded, eyes dropping to his untouched plate. The conversation lapsed into uncomfortable silence until Antonio's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "Excuse me," he said, rising abruptly. "Business that can't wait." After he left, Leo signed, "That always happens. Business always comes first." Maya reached over, gently covering the boy's small hand with her own. "That doesn't mean he doesn't love you." Leo's response was immediate and heartbreaking. "Love isn't enough when you're invisible." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the silence too complete after years of falling asleep to Ryan's snoring and the constant noise of their apartment building. She found herself wandering the mansion's darkened hallways, drawn to the soft glow of light from beneath a door. She hesitated before knocking softly. Antonio's voice answered immediately, "Come in." His study was a fortress of dark wood and leather, walls lined with books that looked unread, carefully curated for appearance rather than content. Antonio sat behind a massive desk, suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, a glass of amber liquid beside stacks of papers. "Miss Reyes?" he acknowledged, gesturing to a chair opposite his desk. "Can't sleep? Everything's too quiet," she admitted, taking the offered seat. Antonio studied her over steepled fingers. "That will pass. Most find the adjustment difficult at first." "Most?" Maya asked. "How many people have you brought here like this?" "None exactly like this," he replied, his gaze uncomfortably direct. "But I've offered protection to many over the years." Maya stiffened. "Is that what I am? Under your protection?" "Among other things." Antonio leaned back, swirling the liquid in his glass. "My security team completed their background check." "Interesting reading." Maya's mouth went dry. "You investigated me?" "I investigate everyone who enters my son's life," he said matter-of-factly. Maya's mouth went there. Maya Elena Reyes, 26, Graduated with honors before dropping out of nursing school to care for your mother during her illness. After her death, a series of dead-end jobs. Then Ryan Donovan entered the picture, and the hospital visits began. Shame burned through Maya, hot and suffocating. That's private. Privacy is a luxury few can afford, Antonio replied, especially those connected to my family. He opened a folder on his desk, turning it so she could see. Photos of hospital records, police reports that never went anywhere. The restraining order she'd tried to file before Ryan's friend on the force lost the paperwork. 3 broken ribs, a concussion, fractured wrist, Antonio listed clinically. All accidents, according to the reports. Falling downstairs, walking into doors. His voice hardened. I don't employ liars, Miss Reyes, but I understand survival. Maya's fingers curled into fists. What do you want from me? The truth, for starters. Antonio closed the folder. Are you afraid of returning to him? The question caught her off guard. She'd expected threats, manipulation, not this direct inquiry about her fears. Yes, she admitted, the word barely audible. Antonio nodded once, satisfied. Then consider this arrangement mutually beneficial. You help Leo, and Ryan Donovan remains breathing but far away from you. Are you threatening him? Maya asked, caught between horror and a shameful relief. I'm offering clarity, Antonio corrected. My son needs you. You need safety. I provide what we all require, and life continues. He paused. Unless you'd prefer to return to your previous situation? Maya thought of her apartment with its paper-thin walls, of Ryan's unpredictable rages, of the constant fear that one day he'd go too far. She thought of Leo's solemn eyes lighting up when she signed to him. No, she said firmly. I'll stay. Good. Antonio's expression remained impassive, but something in his eyes shifted approval, perhaps. Leo has therapy tomorrow at 10. Doctor, Winters has been working with him since the accident, with little success. Perhaps your presence will change that. Maya recognized a dismissal when she heard one. She stood to leave, but paused at the door. Mr. Rossi? What happened to Leo's mother? Antonio went very still, his knuckles whitening around his glass. For a moment, Maya thought she'd overstepped fatally. Car bomb. He said finally, voice devoid of emotion. Meant for me. Leo was in the back seat. Marina had just picked him up from swimming lessons. His jaw tightened. She died instantly. Leo survived but lost 60% of his hearing and hasn't spoken since. The clinical delivery couldn't mask the rage, simmering beneath his words, cold, contained, and infinitely more frightening than Ryan's explosive anger. I'm sorry, Maya said quietly. Antonio's gaze shifted to a silver-framed photo on his desk, turned at an angle she couldn't see. The men responsible are no longer breathing. That's the only apology that matters in my world. He looked up, eyes hard again. Good night, Miss Reyes. Maya learned quickly that the Rossi household operated like a well-oiled machine, with Antonio at its center. Security teams rotated shifts with military precision. Business associates came and went, closeting themselves in Antonio's study for hours. Staff maintained the mansion's immaculate appearance while remaining nearly invisible themselves. Leo's therapy session was a stilted affair. Dr. Winters, a severe woman with steel-gray hair and practiced sympathy, seemed more interested in documenting Leo's progress than actually connecting with him. Mr. Rossi pays for results, she explained when Maya questioned her approach. The boy has been unresponsive for 18 months. My methods are evidence-based and rigorous. He's not unresponsive, Maya countered. He's selective about who he communicates with. Doctor. Winters' smile didn't reach her eyes. And now he's chosen you. How fortunate. Perhaps you'd demonstrate your special technique? The condescension in her voice was unmistakable. Maya crouched beside Leo, who had been silently observing their exchange. She doesn't like me, he signed matter-of-factly. Maya suppressed a smile. She wants to help you. Leo's response was immediate and dismissive. She wants Dad's money. It was difficult to argue with his assessment. When the session ended with minimal progress, Dr. Winters gathered her materials with poorly concealed frustration. Mr. Rossi expects weekly reports. She informed Maya coldly. I'll be noting your interference today. After she left, Maya took Leo to the mansion's expansive gardens. Under the watchful eyes of security personnel stationed discreetly along the perimeter, they explored fountains and carefully manicured hedges. "Did you live here with your mom?" Maya signed as they sat beside a koi pond. Leo nodded, trailing his fingers through the water. "She made it feel like a real home. Now it's just a house with guards." "You miss her a lot?" Maya observed. "Dad won't talk about her." Leo signed, his movements becoming more agitated. He put away all her pictures except the one in his office. "It's like she's disappeared twice." Maya's heart ached for him. Sometimes when people are hurting, they try to hide the things that remind them of their pain. "Does that work?" Leo asked. "No," Maya admitted. "It just makes the pain lonelier." Leo considered this, then signed. "Will you help me find her pictures? I know where Dad stored them." Maya hesitated, aware this might cross a boundary with Antonio, but the hope in Leo's eyes made refusal impossible. "Lead the way." She signed. The storage room was tucked away in the mansion's east wing, a climate-controlled space filled with carefully labeled containers. Leo moved with purpose, locating a specific box marked simply M. Inside were dozens of framed photographs, a beautiful dark-haired woman with Leo's solemn eyes, smiling beside Antonio in various locations, on beaches, at formal events, in casual moments at home. In many, a younger Leo sat between them, the perfect image of a family untouched by tragedy. Leo's hands trembled as he lifted a particular frame, his mother kneeling beside him at what appeared to be a piano recital, both beaming with pride. "I remember this," he signed with one hand, clutching the photo with the other. "I played Mozart." Mom cried because she was happy. Maya blinked back tears. "She looked very proud of you." "What's happening here?" Antonio's voice cut through the moment like ice. He stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous as he surveyed the opened boxes and scattered photographs. "Leo wanted to see pictures of his mother," Maya explained, fighting the instinct to back away. "He misses her." "These were stored away for a reason." Antonio's voice was dangerously quiet. "Because you don't want to remember her?" Leo signed angrily, movements so sharp they were almost violent. "Or because you want me to forget?" Maya translated, watching Antonio's face darken further. "You have no right," he said, directing his anger at Maya. "These are private family matters." "I am family," Leo signed, stomping his foot to get his father's attention. "And Mom is my family too. You can't erase her." As Maya translated, she saw something crack in Antonio's carefully maintained facade, a flash of raw grief quickly suppressed. "Take one picture," he said finally, addressing his son directly. "One. The rest stay here." Leo clutched the recital photo tighter, nodding once in acknowledgement of this small victory. That evening, the mansion received visitors, 5 men in expensive suits, who regarded Maya with open curiosity, as Antonio introduced her simply as Leo's teacher. She recognized the calculation in their eyes, assessing her presence, measuring her significance. One man, younger and sharper than the others, lingered after introductions. "Vittorio Casella," he said, taking Maya's hand longer than necessary, Antonio's right hand in certain, delicate matters. Something in his smile raised warning flags. Maya extricated her hand politely but firmly. "Miss Reyes has been a remarkable influence on my son," Antonio interjected, his tone carrying a subtle warning as he placed a hand on the small of Maya's back, guiding her away. "She's not involved in our other business." "Shame," Vittorio replied, eyes following them. "She might bring a fresh perspective." Later, as Maya helped Leo prepare for bed, she found herself distracted by the exchange. She'd known abstractly what Antonio was. Of course, everyone in the city whispered about the Rossi family's criminal enterprises. But seeing it firsthand, the men who executed his will, the casual references to business that clearly involved more than legitimate commerce, it made her position suddenly uncomfortably real. "You're worried," Leo signed, interrupting her thoughts. Maya forced a smile. "Just thinking. About Dad's friends?" Leo's perception was unnerving. They're not really his friends. Mom called them necessary evils. Maya hesitated before asking, "Is Vittorio one of those necessary evils?" Leo's expression darkened. Mom didn't trust him. She told Dad, but he said Vittorio was loyal. He paused, then added, "That was before the bomb." Maya's blood chilled. Leo, did your mother suspect Vittorio might hurt your family? The boy's hands stilled. I don't remember, he signed finally. Just that she didn't like him near me. Later that night, Maya found herself again drawn to Antonio's study. The door was ajar, voices spilling into the hallway. Undeniable opportunity, Vittorio was saying. The Moretti territory is vulnerable since Paolo's arrest. We move now. We control the entire west side. And start a war in the process, Antonio countered. Paolo's son is impulsive but not stupid. He'll retaliate. Let him, Vittorio argued. Our operation is stronger. Besides, what's family for if not expansion? Family is for protection. Antonio's voice hardened. Marina understood that. Marina is gone. Vittorio's tone softened with false sympathy. And with respect, her caution held you back. The old ways are changing. Antonio. We adapt or we fall. Maya stepped back, but too late the floorboard beneath her foot creaked. The conversation stopped, abruptly. Before she could retreat, the door swung fully open, revealing Vittorio's calculating smile. Eavesdropping? Miss Reyes? How? Domestic. I was looking for Antonio. Maya lied smoothly. Leo had a nightmare. Antonio appeared behind Vittorio, his expression unreadable. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow, he told Vittorio, clearly dismissing him. Vittorio's smile tightened as he brushed past Maya. Sweet dreams, he murmured, the words carrying a subtle threat. When he was gone, Antonio gestured Maya inside. How much did you hear? Enough to know Vittorio wants to expand your territory, she answered honestly. And that you're reluctant. Antonio poured himself a drink, not offering her one this time. Vittorio sees opportunity. I see unnecessary risk. Is that why Marina didn't trust him? Maya asked before she could stop herself. Antonio went very still. What did Leo tell you? Maya hesitated, then decided truth was safer than evasion. That his mother considered your associates necessary evils and specifically didn't trust Vittorio. Antonio set down his glass with deliberate care. Marina was perceptive about people, a quality I sometimes lack. He studied Maya with renewed intensity. Like recognizing that my son's teacher has been systematically gaining his trust to extract information. That's not, isn't it? He cut her off. Within days, you've gotten him talking about his mother, about family business, about Marina's suspicions, things he hasn't communicated to anyone, including me, in 18 months. His voice remained controlled, but danger radiated from him. It makes me wonder what else you're extracting, and for whom. Maya felt fear coil in her stomach but refused to show it. I'm not extracting anything. Leo is lonely and traumatized. He needs someone to listen, not interrogate. And you just happened to be in the right place at the right time, Antonio observed coldly. A waitress with sign language, skills, and a convenient background that appeals to my sympathy. You think I orchestrated being in that diner? Maya laughed incredulously. That I somehow engineered meeting Leo? For what possible purpose? Information is valuable, Antonio replied, especially about families like mine. Police informants, rival families, federal agents, they all employ creative methods. I was serving pancakes, Maya said flatly, not plotting espionage. They stared at each other, the tension between them electric and dangerous. Finally, Antonio spoke, his voice lower. Prove it. Tell me something that proves your loyalty is to my son, not to some outside interest. Maya considered her answer carefully, aware that her safety depended on convincing this dangerous man that she posed no threat to his family. I could have left today, she said finally. When you were in meetings, Leo and I were in the gardens. There's a section of wall partially obscured by trees where the security cameras don't quite reach. I noticed it when Leo was showing me his favorite hiding spots. Antonio's expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. I could have taken Leo and disappeared, Maya continued. Called the police, gone to the media, any number of things. But I didn't, because Leo trusts you despite everything, and because I believe you love him, even if you don't know how to show it anymore. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Antonio moved closer, his proximity sending warning signals through Maya's body. But instead of the threat she expected, his fingers gently traced the fading bruise on her collarbone, exposed by her blouse's wide neckline. Ryan Donovan will never touch you again, he said quietly, the promise carrying more weight than any threat. Before Maya could respond, a scream tore through the mansion, high-pitched and terrified. Leo. They both moved instantly, Antonio reaching his son's room seconds before Maya. Leo was thrashing in his bed, eyes open, but unseeing, locked in some terrible waking nightmare. Antonio grabbed his shoulders, trying to still him, but the boy fought harder, not registering his father's presence. "Let me," Maya said urgently, pushing past Antonio. She knelt beside the bed, catching Leo's flailing hands in hers. Slowly, deliberately, she signed against his palms. "Safe. You're safe. Maya here." Leo's struggles gradually subsided, his eyes focused, recognition dawning. He launched himself into her arms, his entire body trembling. The car. He signed frantically against her back. Mom screaming, couldn't hear but saw her mouth. Fire everywhere. Maya held him tighter, looking over his head at Antonio, who stood frozen, face ashen. For the first time, she saw the powerful man stripped of his armor, just a father watching his son relive the worst moment of both their lives, completely helpless to stop it. "He remembers," Antonio said hoarsely. "The doctors said the trauma blocked everything. Memory is an apside, linear with trauma," Maya explained softly, still holding Leo. "It comes in fragments, especially during nightmares." Antonio sank onto the edge of the bed, reaching tentatively toward his son. Leo remained clinging to Maya, but his trembling subsided. "Should I leave?" Antonio asked Maya, the question revealing a vulnerability she hadn't thought him capable of. "No," Maya said firmly. "He needs both of us." Slowly, she loosened Leo's grip, signing, "Your dad is here too. He's worried about you." Leo turned, regarding his father with wary exhaustion. Then, with hesitant movements, he signed, "Stay?" When Maya translated, Antonio's composure cracked completely. "Yes," he said roughly. "I'll stay." What followed was a vigil of sorts, Leo, eventually drifting back to sleep between them, Maya and Antonio, sitting in silence on either side of the bed. As dawn approached, Antonio spoke, his voice barely audible. "I don't know how to help him." The admission seemed to cost him greatly. Maya studied his profile in the dim light, the strong jaw now tensed with worry, the commanding presence diminished by paternal helplessness. "You start by being present," she replied softly. "Not just physically, but emotionally. He doesn't need the powerful Antonio Rossi. He needs his father." Antonio's gaze shifted to her, something unreadable in his expression. "And what do you need, Maya Reyes?" The question caught her off guard, intimate in a way that transcended their roles as employer and employee. Before she could formulate a response, his phone vibrated. Antonio checked it, his expression instantly transforming from vulnerable father back to calculating crime lord. "Security breach at the perimeter," he said, standing abruptly. "Stay with Leo. Lock the door behind me." As he strode from the room, Maya caught a glimpse of the man who controlled half the city through fear and blood, efficient, dangerous, completely separate from the man who had sat vigil at his son's bedside. She locked the door as instructed, cradling Leo's sleeping form closer, suddenly and acutely aware that the sanctuary she'd found might be built on quicksand. Whatever security breach had triggered, Antonio's response could be nothing, or it could be the beginning of something that would shatter the fragile peace they'd established. Either way, Maya realized with startling clarity that her fate was now inextricably linked to the Rossi family, for better or worse. And judging by the urgent voices and running footsteps in the hallway beyond Leo's locked door, worse seemed increasingly likely. Dawn broke over the mansion in shades of crimson. Maya hadn't slept, keeping vigil beside Leo's bed while the house around them buzzed with controlled urgency. Through the window, she counted at least a dozen more security personnel than usual patrolling the grounds, their movements precise and alert. Leo stirred beside her, blinking slowly into consciousness. His hands moved immediately, signing, "What's happening?" "I'm not sure," Maya signed back. "Your father mentioned a security issue last night." Leo's expression darkened with understanding beyond his years. "Someone's coming for us." Again, a knock at the door interrupted them. Maya approached cautiously, calling, "Who is it?" "Marco," came the response. "Mister, Rossi requests your presence in his study, both of you. Maya helped Leo dress quickly, noting how the boy's movements betrayed no fear, only the resigned efficiency of someone accustomed to danger. They followed Marco through corridors now staffed with armed men, their presence less concealed than usual. Antonio stood at the window of his study, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call as they entered, his expression grave but controlled. "Leo," he said directly to his son, then signed a rudimentary "good morning" with unpracticed hands. Leo's eyes widened slightly at the attempt. He signed back a simple "hello," then looked questioningly at his father. "We have a situation," Antonio explained, gesturing for them to sit. His gaze shifted to Maya. "Ryan Donovan was found dead in his apartment last night." Maya's blood turned to ice. "What? How?" "Officially, a break-in gone wrong," Antonio replied, watching her closely. 3 bullets. Professional execution styled as random violence. The implication hung heavy between them. Maya felt sick, conflicted emotions warring within her horror at the violence, shameful relief that Ryan could never hurt her again, and the terrible certainty that Antonio was responsible. "Did you?" she began, unable to finish the question. "No," Antonio said firmly. "Not my order, not my men." "Then who?" Maya asked, hands trembling. "That's the concerning part," Antonio replied. "The method suggests Moretti family involvement. They rarely operate in that neighborhood unless sending a message." Leo tugged Maya's sleeve, signing frantically. "What's wrong? Who died?" Maya hesitated, unsure how to explain to a child. Antonio surprised her by answering directly, his signs clumsy but intelligible. "Bad man who hurt Maya is dead." He signed slowly. "Might be enemies trying to scare us." Leo processed this, then signed to Maya. "Are you sad he's dead?" The directness of the question struck Maya like a physical blow. "I'm sad about violence," she signed carefully. "Not sad he can't hurt me anymore." Antonio watched their exchange with sharp attention. When Leo finished, he addressed his son directly, speaking and signing simultaneously with evident effort. "I need you to stay with Mrs. Vega today." "In the safe room." Leo's response was immediate and adamant. "No, stay with Maya." "Leo, this isn't a discussion," Antonio began, but Maya interrupted. "Why would the Moretti family target Ryan?" she asked. "He meant nothing to them. Unless they're sending a message that they can reach anyone connected to us." Antonio finished, his expression hardening, starting with peripheral targets before moving inward. Maya's mind raced. "The security breach last night?" "Perimeter sensors detected movement near the east wall," Antonio confirmed. "Exactly where you mentioned the blind spot in our camera coverage." The implication sent a chill down Maya's spine. Had someone been watching them? Had her offhand comment to Antonio about the security gap been precisely the information someone else needed? "You think I'm involved," she realized aloud. "That's why you're telling me this. You think I'm feeding information to the Morettis." Antonio's gaze was stone. "The timing is concerning. You arrive, gain our trust, identify weaknesses in our security, and then Ryan Donovan is executed in a way that points directly to our rivals." Leo looked between them, clearly sensing the tension, though he couldn't hear the exchange. He tugged Maya's arm insistently, signing, "What's happening?" Maya signed back briefly. "Adult problem. I'll explain later." Then she faced Antonio squarely. "If I were working with your enemies, why would I point out the security flaw to you? I could have simply used it." "Perhaps that was the plan all along," Antonio countered. "Build trust by revealing one vulnerability while exploiting others." Maya felt the ground shifting beneath her. Just hours ago, they had shared a moment of unexpected intimacy at Leo's bedside. Now she was once again a suspect, her presence a potential threat. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "You'll both remain under heightened security while we investigate," Antonio answered. "Leo stays in the safe room with trusted guards. You stay where I can see you." Leo, following enough of the conversation through Maya's expressions, stomped his foot to get their attention. His signs were rapid and emphatic. "Maya, not bad. Maya helps me. Dad, please trust." Antonio's expression softened marginally as Maya translated. He crouched to his son's level, signing with deliberate care. "I must protect family, including Maya. Safe room protects everyone." What followed was a carefully orchestrated movement through the mansion. Maya and Leo were escorted to a reinforced suite in the building's center, a luxury panic room disguised as comfortable living quarters. Marco and 2 other guards remained stationed outside while Mrs. Vega brought meals and activities to keep Leo occupied. Hours passed in tense confinement. Maya helped Leo with schoolwork, played chess, and tried to maintain normalcy while her mind circled relentlessly around Antonio's suspicions. If he truly believed she was working with his enemies, her life expectancy could be measured in days, perhaps hours. Near sunset, the door opened to reveal Antonio with Vittorio close behind him. Both men's expressions were grim. "We need to talk," Antonio said to Maya. "Alone." Leo immediately protested, signing frantically. Antonio signed back with surprising fluency he'd clearly been practicing since morning. "Just business. Talk. Maya comes back soon." Maya squeezed Leo's shoulder reassuringly before following the men to Antonio's study. The mansion hummed with heightened security, additional guards, whispered communications, the unmistakable atmosphere of an organization preparing for conflict. In the study, Vittorio wasted no time. "Phone records confirm it," he told Antonio, sliding a document across the desk. 7 calls from Ryan Donovan to a burner phone traced to Moretti territory. The most recent, yesterday afternoon. Antonio examined the document, his expression unreadable. Maya's stomach twisted with dread as she realized the implication. "Ryan was working with the Morettis?" she asked incredulously. "Not working with," Vittorio corrected with a cold smile. "Informing on. About you, your new employment, your access to the Rossi family." "That's impossible," Maya insisted. Ryan hated anything to do with law or authority. "He wouldn't." "Money motivates the weak-willed," Vittorio interjected. "The Morettis approached him after you left with Marco. Offered him cash for information about your new position." Antonio remained silent, watching Maya intently. "I don't understand," she said finally. "Why would the Morettis care about me? I'm nobody." "You're the woman who breached Antonio Rossi's inner circle in a single day," Vittorio replied. "The first person to connect with his son since Marina's death. That makes you very significant." Maya looked to Antonio, searching for some indication of his thoughts. His expression remained impenetrable. "If Ryan was informing on me," she reasoned slowly, "why would the Morettis kill him?" "Because he became a liability once we discovered the breach," Antonio answered, finally breaking his silence. "Or because he demanded more money, or simply because they finished extracting whatever information he'd possessed." Maya felt the walls closing in. Every circumstance seemed to implicate her in a conspiracy she knew nothing about. "I swear to you," she said directly to Antonio, "I had no knowledge of any of this. I'm not working with the Morettis or anyone else." Before Antonio could respond, the study door burst open. Marco stood there, breathing hard, blood splattered across his shirt. "Perimeter breach," he reported tersely. "East and south sectors. At least a dozen men." Antonio was on his feet instantly. "Leo?" "Still in the safe room with Gianelli and Torres," Marco assured him. "Seal all entrances," Antonio ordered, moving to a painting that concealed a wall safe. He extracted a handgun, checking it with practiced efficiency. "Activate Protocol 7. Vittorio moved to the window, peering through the blinds. "Moretti is escalating," he observed, taking advantage of Paolo's arrest to assert himself. "This isn't just escalation," Antonio replied grimly. "It's a direct assault. Find out who authorized this." He turned to Maya. "You stay with me." The next minutes passed in a blur of coordinated movement. Antonio led Maya through hallways now filled with armed men taking defensive positions. The sound of distant gunfire confirmed the perimeter breach had evolved into active combat. "We need to get to Leo," Maya insisted as Antonio guided her toward what appeared to be his private quarters rather than the safe room. "Leo is secure," Antonio assured her. "The safe room is a fortress. We need to ensure you're not caught in the crossfire." Maya stopped abruptly. "You still think I'm part of this?" Antonio's expression hardened. "What I think doesn't matter. What matters is keeping both you and Leo protected until this situation resolves." His private suite revealed another side of Antonio Rossi, minimalist, almost Spartan. With none of the ostentation displayed in the mansion's public areas, he secured the door behind them, then moved to a concealed panel that revealed a bank of security monitors showing various areas of the property. Maya watched in horror as black-clad figures moved, methodically across the grounds, engaging in firefights with Rossi security forces. The assault was coordinated and professional, not a spontaneous attack but a carefully planned operation. "Why now?" she asked. "What's changed to trigger this?" Antonio's attention remained on the monitors. The balance of power shifts constantly. Paolo Moretti's arrest created instability. His son Stefano is young, aggressive, eager to prove himself. By attacking you directly, that seems suicidal. "Not with proper intelligence and planning," Antonio replied. His gaze shifted to her meaningfully. "Not if someone provided details about our security, our routines, our vulnerabilities." Before Maya could protest again, the security feed from Leo's safe room caught her attention. The boy sat alone, arms wrapped around his knees, eyes fixed on the door. No guards were visible inside the room. "Where are Gianelli and Torres?" she demanded. "They're supposed to be with him." Antonio checked the feed, his expression darkening. "They should be inside the room, not just outside." He reached for his phone, dialing rapidly. The call connected, but Antonio's growing tension was palpable as he listened. "Get inside the room now," he ordered. "Visual confirmation of my son, immediately." As he ended the call, a new alert flashed across the security monitors. "Breach Central Sector. That's impossible," Antonio muttered, fingers flying across the control panel to cycle through different camera views. "The Central Sector has redundant security." The feed from the hallway outside Leo's safe room showed Gianelli and Torres engaged in a firefight with multiple attackers. Even as they watched, Torres fell, and Gianelli was forced back from the safe room door. Antonio was already moving, gun in hand. "Stay here," he commanded Maya. "The room is secure." "Do not open the door for anyone but me." "I'm coming with you," Maya insisted. "Leo needs me. What Leo needs is for one of us to stay alive to protect him," Antonio snapped. "If this is a coordinated attack targeting both of us, we don't play into their hands by staying together." Logic warred with emotion as Maya recognized the strategic sense in his words. She nodded reluctantly, accepting the small handgun he pressed into her palm. "Last resort," he said, briefly demonstrating the safety. "Help is coming. The family has protocols for this." Their eyes met, and in that moment, all suspicion seemed secondary to their shared concern for Leo. Antonio's hand brushed her cheek in a gesture so fleeting she might have imagined it. "If I don't come back," he said quietly, "there's a blue folder in the safe behind the mirror. Instructions, accounts, everything you need to get Leo somewhere safe." Before Maya could process the implications of this statement, Antonio was gone, the door securing automatically behind him. Alone, Maya paced the room, checking the security feeds obsessively. The view outside Leo's safe room showed bodies, on the floor, Gianelli among them. The camera inside the room showed Leo still alone, still huddled, clearly terrified even though the soundproofed room would have spared him the noise of gunfire. Minutes stretched like hours. The security feeds showed sporadic fighting throughout the mansion. Antonio appeared on several feeds, moving purposefully with a team of guards toward the central sector. Then, abruptly, the power fluctuated. The security monitors went dark for several seconds before restoring, now showing only static on most feeds. The feed from inside Leo's safe room was among the few still functioning. Maya watched in horror as a hidden panel in the wall, a secondary entrance she hadn't known existed, slid open. Vittorio stepped into the room, his expression calm as he approached the terrified boy. Maya's blood turned to ice. If Vittorio was entering through a concealed entrance known only to the family's inner circle, it could mean only one thing: betrayal from within. She tried Antonio's number, but the call went straight to voicemail. Decision made, Maya checked the handgun's safety, tucked it into her waistband, and moved to the door. The electronic lock required Antonio's fingerprint or a code she didn't possess. Frantically, Maya searched the room for anything that might help. In the bathroom, she found a ventilation shaft large enough for a person, secured by a grill with standard screws. Using a letter opener from Antonio's desk, she worked frantically to remove the fasteners. The ventilation system was a maze, but Maya had spent enough time in the mansion to have a general sense of its layout. She crawled through dusty shafts, following the sounds of distant conflict, guided by instinct and desperation. Eventually, she found another grill that opened into a hallway near the central sector. The area was eerily quiet. The fighting seemed to have moved elsewhere. Maya dropped silently to the floor, gun ready, and oriented herself. Leo's, a safe room, was 2 corridors away. She moved cautiously, pressing against walls, freezing at every sound. When she finally reached the safe room's main entrance, the sight confirmed her worst fears. Gianelli lay dead, alongside 2 attackers in nondescript tactical gear. The safe room door stood partially open. Maya slipped inside, weapon raised. The room appeared empty at first glance, the monitors showing only static. Then she heard a muffled sound from behind the large sofa. She approached cautiously, then nearly collapsed with relief when she found Leo, alive and unharmed, hidden in the narrow space between the furniture and the wall. "Maya!" he signed frantically when he saw her. "Bad man, Vittorio. Where is he?" Maya signed back quickly. "Left through secret door." Leo signed, pointing to the panel now sealed seamlessly into the wall. "Said men coming to hurt me. Said Dad sent him to move me." I didn't believe him. Maya pulled Leo into a fierce hug, then signed, "Smart, boy. We need to find your dad." They slipped out of the safe room, Maya keeping Leo behind her as they navigated the eerily quiet corridors. The absence of both security personnel and attackers was unnerving, as if the battle had suddenly relocated or concluded. As they approached Antonio's study, raised voices became audible. Maya motioned for Leo to stay back as she edged closer to the partially open door. "Fundamentally misunderstand loyalty," Antonio was saying, his voice tight with controlled fury. "I understand it perfectly," Vittorio replied. "Loyalty to family, to tradition, to strength. You've become weak, Antonio. Sentimental. First over Marina, now over this waitress and a deaf boy who will never take your place in this organization." Maya peered carefully around the doorframe. Antonio stood with his back to the door, facing Vittorio, who held a gun casually at his side. 3 bodies lay on the floor. Moretti soldiers, based on the distinctive tattoos visible on one man's exposed wrist. "You engineered this," Antonio said flatly. "The Moretti attack, Ryan Donovan's death, all of it." "I created an opportunity," Vittorio corrected. Stefano Moretti was eager to prove himself. "I simply suggested the timing and provided certain details. The assault is real enough. His men are currently being dealt with by ours, while you eliminate me and secure your position," Antonio concluded. "Clean, efficient." Vittorio smiled thinly. "The family needs strong leadership, Antonio. You've lost your edge since Marina died. The Rossi Empire can't be run by a man distracted by grief and a crippled child." Maya felt Leo tense beside her. He'd crept forward despite her warning and was watching the exchange with wide, comprehending eyes. Though he couldn't hear the words, the threat was unmistakable. "And the waitress?" Antonio asked, his tone dangerously calm. "Why target her?" "Convenience," Vittorio shrugged. "When she appeared at the diner, I recognized an opportunity. Her abusive boyfriend was easily manipulated, paid to report on her movements, then eliminated to cast suspicion on the Morettis. Her presence divided your attention, made you predictable." Antonio shifted slightly, and Maya saw that his right hand was pressed against his side, blood seeping between his fingers. He'd been wounded but was hiding it with careful positioning. "The family won't follow you," Antonio said. "They know what you are." "They'll follow strength," Vittorio countered, raising his gun. "As they always have. Don't worry about Leo. I'll see he's properly institutionalized, somewhere comfortable but secure. As for Miss Reyes," he smiled coldly. "Casualties are expected during a rival family's attack." Maya made her decision in that instant. She stepped into the doorway, gun raised. "Put it down, Vittorio." He turned, surprise flickering briefly across his face before settling into smug amusement. "The waitress plays heroine. How touching." "Maya, get out," Antonio ordered, his voice strained. "Take Leo and go." "Leo's right here," Maya replied, not taking her eyes off Vittorio. "D?" "He's seen everything." Vittorio's expression hardened as Leo stepped into view. "Unfortunate timing," he said coldly. "But it simplifies matters. Now I don't have to hunt you down separately." "You won't touch him," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You're finished, Vittorio. Antonio's men have handled the Moretti attackers. How long before they realize you're the real threat?" Uncertainty flickered across Vittorio's face. He hadn't expected the Moretti assault to be contained so quickly. His plan required chaos to conceal his betrayal. "Even if you shoot me," he said, recovering, "you can't save Antonio. He's already bleeding out. One bullet to a major vessel during the initial confusion." Tragic friendly fire incident. Maya kept her gun trained on him, but her mind raced. Antonio was indeed losing blood rapidly, his complexion growing ashen. Without immediate medical attention, Vittorio wouldn't need to fire again. "Leo," she signed one-handed, keeping her gun steady. "Behind the desk. Now." Leo darted across the room, ducking behind the heavy furniture. Vittorio tracked him momentarily, and in that split second of divided attention, Maya fired. The shot went wide, splintering the bookshelf behind him. Vittorio responded immediately, returning fire as Maya threw herself sideways. Pain exploded in her shoulder as a bullet grazed her, but adrenaline kept her moving. Antonio used the distraction to lunge forward despite his wound, crashing into Vittorio. The two men struggled, but Antonio's injured state gave Vittorio the advantage. He slammed Antonio against the desk, pressing the gun to his throat. "I wanted this to be cleaner," Vittorio snarled. "But the result is the same." What happened next unfolded in seconds that seemed stretched to eternity. Leo emerged from behind the desk, a letter opener clutched in his small hand. With silent determination, he drove it into Vittorio's calf. Vittorio howled, reflexively kicking backward. The momentary distraction was enough. Antonio twisted the gun away from his throat as Maya steadied her aim and fired again. This time, her shot found its mark. Vittorio stumbled back, shock registering as crimson bloomed across his chest. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but only blood emerged. He collapsed, eyes still open in eternal surprise. Maya rushed to Antonio, pressing her hands against his wound. "We need to get you help," she urged, already calculating how quickly she could reach a phone. "Security protocols," Antonio managed, his voice weak. "All communications blocked during breach." "Standard procedure." Leo appeared at his father's side, tears streaming down his face as he took in the blood, the ashen complexion, the labored breathing. He signed frantically, "Dad, no. Please, don't leave like Mom." Antonio reached up with a bloodied hand, touching his son's cheek. "Not going anywhere." He signed slowly, then looked at Maya. "Blue folder. Safe." "I'm not leaving you," she insisted. Antonio's eyes held hers. "Trust. You with him. Only you." The next hours passed in a desperate haze. Maya tore strips from her shirt to bandage Antonio's wound, then helped him to a concealed elevator that led to a secure garage beneath the mansion. Leo remained close, his small hands often reaching to touch his father, as if assuring himself Antonio was still present. The blue folder contained everything Antonio had promised: identification documents, access codes to offshore accounts, a comprehensive escape plan. Maya drove the nondescript sedan through back roads to a private medical facility, clearly accustomed to treating wounds that couldn't be explained in emergency rooms. As doctors worked on Antonio, Maya sat with Leo in a luxurious private waiting room. His hands hadn't stopped moving, alternating between anxious questions about his father and stunned recounting of what he'd witnessed. "I stabbed the bad man," he signed, shock evident in his expression. "You protected your father," Maya corrected gently. "You were very brave." "Will Dad die?" Leo asked, the direct question typical of children facing trauma. Maya hesitated, then decided honesty was necessary. "The doctors are working very hard. Your father is strong." Hours later, a tired-looking physician informed them Antonio had stabilized. The bullet had missed vital organs, but blood loss had been severe. Recovery would be lengthy, but possible. When they were finally allowed to see him, Antonio lay pale against white sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside him. Leo approached cautiously, as if afraid his presence might somehow cause harm. Antonio's eyes opened, focusing first on his son, then on Maya. He lifted a hand weakly, forming signs that were imprecise but clear. "My family. Safe." Leo climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed, taking his father's hand. "We got the bad man," he signed. "Maya and me. We're a team." Antonio's gaze shifted to Maya, a question in his eyes. "Vittorio didn't make it," she confirmed quietly. "Your security team has contained the situation." Marco is coordinating with your consigliere to stabilize things. Antonio nodded slightly, then signed to Leo. Proud of you. Brave, like your mother. Tears welled in Leo's eyes, but they were different from the terrified tears of earlier. These carried relief, love, connection long denied. He curled against his father's uninjured side, careful of the tubes and wires, but determined to maintain physical contact. Maya moved to leave, to give them privacy, but Antonio caught her wrist. Stay, he said, the single word carrying weight beyond its simplicity. In the days that followed, the Rossi family reorganized itself around the new reality. Vittorio's betrayal had exposed vulnerabilities that needed addressing. Antonio, though confined to a hospital bed, directed operations with characteristic precision, now with Maya often at his side. The explanation given to the wider organization was partial truth. Vittorio had conspired with the Morettis, seeing opportunity in Antonio's changed priorities after Marina's death. The more personal aspects, Antonio's injury, Leo's involvement, Maya's role remained private, known only to the innermost circle. 2 weeks after the attack, Antonio was strong enough to return to the mansion, now secured with enhanced protocols. Maya had moved her few possessions into a suite adjoining Leo's, her role evolving far beyond the sign language teacher Antonio had initially employed. She found him one evening in his study, reviewing security reports despite medical orders to rest. Leo had finally fallen asleep after days of nightmares, reluctantly soothed by Maya's promise to check on his father. You should be resting, she chided gently. Antonio looked up, his expression softening in a way few ever witnessed. So should you. Maya approached his desk, noting how he set aside the reports at her presence, a small but significant shift in priorities. Leo's asking questions about what happens next, she said, taking the seat opposite him. He's afraid things will go back to how they were before. Before you, Antonio clarified. His gaze held hers steadily. They won't. The silence between them carried unspoken questions, possibilities neither had dared articulate during the crisis. The blue folder, Maya said finally. Your contingency plan. You entrusted me with Leo's safety. With your family's future. Yes. No elaboration. Just simple acknowledgement of a trust that transcended professional boundaries. Why? Maya asked. Antonio considered her question with characteristic thoroughness. When I brought you here, it was desperation, a father grasping at anything that might help his son. Then I watched you with Leo, saw how you faced down threats without flinching, how you put his needs before your safety. He paused. I've known loyal soldiers, trusted advisors, even love. But I've never known someone who embodied all three. The word hung between them, love unexpected and yet somehow inevitable. I don't belong in this world, Maya said quietly. No, Antonio agreed. You've brought something better into it. Something I thought died with Marina. He reached across the desk, his hand covering hers. Stay, he said simply. Not as an employee, not out of obligation or fear. Stay, because Leo needs you. His voice softened. Because I need you. Maya thought of the diner where this had begun, how far she had traveled from serving pancakes and hiding bruises. She thought of Leo's solemn eyes lighting up when she signed to him, of the fierce protective instinct that had driven her to face down Vittorio. Your world is dangerous, she said. Today's allies could be tomorrow's Vittorio. Yes, Antonio acknowledged. I won't pretend otherwise, but you've proven more than capable of navigating it. He stood, moving around the desk to face her directly. His recovery had restored some of his commanding presence, but vulnerability remained in his eyes as he took both her hands in his. I protect what's mine, he said, the phrase carrying new meaning. Leo, the family, you, if you choose to stay. Maya thought of choices and consequences, of the strange path that had led her to this moment. She thought of Leo sleeping upstairs, finally at peace knowing both his father and Maya were under the same roof. I stay, she said simply, decision made. Antonio's hands tightened around hers, his expression transforming with a hope he'd abandoned months ago. In this world of power and violence, in this house built on secrets and strength, something unexpected had taken root, a family reformed from broken pieces, finding wholeness in the unlikeliest circumstances. Later, as moonlight spilled across the mansion grounds, Maya stood at Leo's bedside, watching him sleep. peacefully for the first time since the attack. Antonio appeared in the doorway, a silent presence radiating protective vigilance. As their eyes met over the sleeping form of the boy who had brought them together, Maya recognized the truth that sometimes salvation comes in unexpected forms, and sometimes a simple gesture like signing hello to a lonely child can alter the course of many lives. Antonio moved beside her, his arm slipping around her waist as they stood watch together. Outside, the night concealed dangers still lurking, rivals regrouping, challenges awaiting. But within these walls, within this moment, they had created something the violence could not touch. A sanctuary built not just of security systems and armed guards, but of understanding, trust, and a love that had emerged from the most unlikely beginnings. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.